Hey everybody, it's John Ray, and today I just wanted to talk a little bit about my mindfulness process because it is a vivid part of who I am and part of my research process. I know I have a lot of new subscribers from the SmartCoin ecosystem, but one of the things that has happened since SmartCoin is that I, in addition to my existing life, now have this whole other world, which is amazing and interesting and full of good data and rabbit holes to jump down. But having that many dings, rings, and screens kind of always popping up in my world, I think can sometimes put me a little bit too much in my head. And I can actually feel some of the mental energy kind of accumulating in my head, and I feel disconnected from my body. And one of the things that I've learned about myself is that if I can get reintegrated back into my body and have clear balance between head and heart, body, mind, and spirit, those can be woo woo concepts for a lot of people. And I'm not saying that this is a practice that should be for everybody. But for me, I like to sit with myself and let some of those energies balance out because I know that it allows me to, once integrated, be more productive, to be able to open my decision space, to be able to see more data points. And when we're playing a game of Clue where seeing data points is the most important thing we can do, which of course is all marketplaces that we're trading, the person who can see more and has the biggest perspective, and has the capability to hold multiple perspectives is always going to be the most profitable trader. And so if there was a tangible, practical reason for doing a meditation and getting into your body and really noticing what's happening in there, it's that. It'll, in my experience, it makes you a better trader. It allows you to get over any post-traumatic stress disorder that you have of maybe trades gone wrong or projects gone wrong. And then in a world that is ruled by FOMO and FUD, where somebody else releases a meme coin when you thought your project was, I think that happened for some of us today, or we learn something new that throws us for a complete emotional loop. It's important for us to check in with ourselves and allow some of that emotional energy to integrate. Otherwise, it can really start to rule us. And that's what PTSD is. It's when past trauma, and trauma is just an expectation that wasn't met. And so it could be, I didn't get the french fries at the drive-through window. It could be that small, creates a freeze-dried pocket of emotional energy in our system that then narrows our focus. It puts blinders on us. And sometimes focus can be a good thing, but when we are trying to analyze an entire marketplace and understand that Keynesian beauty contest of how all perspectives are perceiving something so that we can properly position ourselves, it's really important to have all of our emotional, mental, and spiritual faculties available. So, with that intro, I'm just going to go ahead and walk myself through a mindfulness practice, and if this resonates with you, feel free to just sit here and be guided through this process. But when I've been staring at information and responding to messages all day long, or for many days on end, one thing that I want to do is just take a few deep breaths. And really, what I'm tracking is what's actually happening in my body. Like, I can feel that I'm a little bit over caffeinated right now. My heart's racing a little bit. There's also some nervousness that this message that I'm putting out is different than a lot of the messages that some of you have come here to see. And so I'm just feeling into what some of that telepathic projection might be, and some of the worry and fear that I have. And it manifests as just kind of like a static energy in my system. And so I'll stop talking for a second and take a few breaths. And really, what I'm looking for is like, what is the sensation in my body? because sensation comes before the thought. And so if I'm too caught in the mania of my situation, I can really easily start to spin out into a manic state where my thoughts are disjointed and I'm not connecting data points in the right way. But if I can stop and just try to tune into what's happening in my feet or my legs or my knees, my stomach, my chest, just do a full body scan and notice what sensations are happening there. So I'm just going to pause for a second and tune into what's happening in my body. And my energy is running really fast right now. There's a lot of pressure in the head. And it's funny how I don't even notice it until I stop and kind of let everything catch up. And then I'm like, "Oh wow, there's some pressure in my head. There's some nervousness in my chest." And I'm not trying to get it to go away. I'm not labeling it as good or bad. I'm literally just acknowledging that it's there and generating a kind of curiosity about the sensations happening in my body. And for me, when I have a lot of mental energy that hasn't integrated down into my body, I can get congested, or that's maybe when allergies start working up. All of these things have an emotional root. And when we are emotionally and energetically balanced, we really are optimized in our ability to perceive the world around us and to have an impact on the world around us. Where when those energies start to get out of balance, and we live in a world that the mental energy is dominant, most people are disconnected heads from their body. And when that happens, it can be really easy to submit to groupthink or to make choices from fear and to just not listen to the intuitive urges that are always available to us as data points, but they emanate from our body. And we have to have a proper balance between mind and body, head and heart, in order to even perceive some of those deeper, more subtle intuitive data points. So, some of the pressure in my head right now, it could be easy to try to resist that, to try to not pay attention to it, to push it away and just ignore it. But if I can go fully into that pressure, to any pulsing happening in the head, what happens is our attention, which I would call the light of our consciousness, when we direct that towards ailments or pressure points or uncomfortable energy or sensations in the body, it actually almost acts like a laser beam or like Drano in the pipes. And it'll start to clear some of that blockage out so that the energy can flow a little bit more freely. And learning to witness ourselves in this way, especially in the cryptocurrency space, is such a powerful practice because we learn to create enough space where we're not ruled by our emotions anymore. We can be emotional beings. We can express emotion authentically. There's no fear to being in our emotion. And because of that, we don't have a knee jerk reaction to our emotion. A lot of times, what happens when we're experiencing FOMO or FUD is that there's actually an uncomfortable sensation that's happening in our body. It's usually fear or anxiety or overwhelmment. And as a mechanism for not having to feel that, for escaping that feeling, we have a knee jerk reaction, and that can oftentimes look like poor decision making in the marketplace or in any area of our life. And so, creating this kind of space is a really profitable action to be proactive about. And when I say profitable, I don't just mean financial, although it can certainly play into making good choices in highly volatile markets or highly emotional markets. But when we create a witnessing practice like this, where we're just noticing what's happening in our body, we created enough distance and we build the muscle of our emotional capacity so that we also aren't reactionary to the things and people around us. And when we're no longer reactionary to the things and people around us, we can have enough space to take in someone else's perspective without it meaning something about our own perspective. And this kind of empathy or telepathy allows us to make better choices in our romantic partnerships, better choices in our friendships, better choices in our business partners, clients, the people that we work with, the job that we ultimately go to and do each day. It can be easy to think that all of these things just happen randomly and that they're on autopilot. But at some level, everything that we experience is based on our capacity to perceive the situation clearly, have access to a wide enough decision space or series of options to be able to see all the options available, and then to clearly process the situation so that mentally and emotionally we can pick out and have the courage to choose the option that is going to be most optimal for our life and putting us in the direction of our hopes, dreams, and desires. And one of the things that really can prevent us from taking a choice that we know we should take, but there's some little voice that says, yeah, but people are going to think something about you if you do that. Or you're going to have people not like you. Or that would mean that you'd have to have an uncomfortable conversation with someone. So rather than having to have one uncomfortable conversation that might free you and open up a whole new game and level of experiencing, instead, we just ignore having that uncomfortable conversation. And we can even convince ourselves that, oh, everything's fine. And yet, slowly, we start to feel like a robot. We start to feel like everything is just monotonous. There's a coldness and a grayness to life. And this is because we're not allowing ourselves to go to the uncomfortable places that are presenting themselves. And anyone who has ever overcome any kind of challenge or operated as an entrepreneur, you recognize that even an athlete knows this very well. There's going to be moments of failure But if those moments of failure can happen quickly, can be integrated fully so that we can learn from each of those moments, it really allows us to accelerate our existence and our decision making process. And we're all just a handful of decisions away from really a completely different life if we wanted one. And even if we already love our lives, which I do, I know that I'm just a couple of decisions away from accelerating how I'm engaging with the game of life. And it all starts with just tuning into what's happening in my body. All those messages, dings, rings, screens, data from every direction. If it's in your mind right now, that's okay. But see if you can find where that lives as sensation in your body and move all of your attention there. For me right now, it's a little bit of a shaky feeling in my heart or my chest. And so I just tune into that. I notice it. That's all I have to do is notice it. And it's interesting, even just noticing that I can feel my sinus cavities expanding a little bit so that the air flows just a little bit more freely. There's some tension in my neck. A little bit of anxiety that maybe I'm missing something on my phone right now, or maybe somebody is trying to send me a message that's important and I'm not going to hear it. That's okay. I just notice where I feel that in my body. And for me, it's right here in the chest. So I just put all of my attention on that sensation. And I practice being comfortable with discomfort. And being comfortable with discomfort has served me in so many incredible ways because it allows for an accelerated growth process. And in an accelerated growth process, we have so much more access to information about ourselves, our situations, the people around us, the events that we're engaging in, and really life as a whole. There's more clarity on how to show up in our lives. And it all starts with being present with what's actually happening right now. And if I get still and there's some discomfort in my body, then that is the present moment. And so I sit with that. And a lot of times I sit with this just because I've become so comfortable with discomfort that it's actually relaxing to sit with it. It's like the tension just melts off me. It's like when you drink a warm cup of tea and you can just feel the heat rolling through your body. Tuning into my discomfort is like that for me now. And so the motivation to do this is just because it feels good. But before I had fully developed that knowing that this helps, the motivation that I used was that I wanted my mind to work better. I wanted to see things that other people didn't see. I wanted to find opportunities that few saw. And by sitting with my body in this way, becoming comfortable with any sensation or discomfort that shows up in the body, by vividly scanning my body daily or multiple times a day, just being present with whatever sensation is there. I've found that I do have a much more expanded perception, and my ability to relate to others and to the world around me is hyper optimized. So, if peace isn't enough of a carrot for you, maybe do it for the optimization. Because, of course, with an optimized mind and an optimized heart, there's plenty of opportunity that opens up to us. But it starts with acknowledging how we feel and really learning to feel our feelings. There's no feeling that lasts forever. If we sit with them long enough, they will dissipate, they will reintegrate back into our system. We will clear the blockage that created the discomfort. And then we'll be operating from more bandwidth, greater perception, and a more loving spirit. Because when we can love ourselves and tune into ourselves, pay this close of attention to ourselves, that emanates and becomes a part of our interactions with everything else. So let's just sit like this in silence for a couple of minutes, and then we'll come back into the room and go about our lives. But the easiest way for us to truly find a place of peace and silence is to go fully into our body. And our body will show us what wants our attention right now. And then we simply relax in to whatever sensation our body is presenting. So scan your body, and whatever area of your body is calling to you, just put your attention there and notice it in silence. Tuning into our bodies in this way is an excellent reset switch. And it's an excellent way to integrate and fully process the emotions and energies of the day. For me, I like to do this in the morning for at least 15 minutes before I turn my phone on, before all that external stimuli starts to hit me. There's so much information that comes to us in our dreams. And if we immediately pick up our phone the second that we wake up and are pulled into email and text messages and Telegram and Twitter, we don't get to fully integrate the benefit of our dreamscape. And so my practice is always to leave my phone off for at least 15 minutes after I've woken up. And I just go through this process and sit with myself. And it can be easy to want to interpret our dreams or our day with our mind because a lot of people tell us that that is what we should do. And there's, of course, benefit to processing things at the mental level. But where our dreams are most impactful is in the emotions that they inspire. And those emotions can sometimes be subtle, but they're information. And when we wake up, if we can give ourselves the time to integrate that information, it can really add an elevated layer of perception to our day. And of course, if you're in any kind of business where expanded perception is valuable, it can be a lucrative process. But it can also just be a peaceful process that gives us the fortitude required to live in our stretch zone and to make a bigger impact and to support those around us. And at the end of the day, if we've been active in our stress, that was Freudian, our stretch zone, our stress zone. If we've been active in our stress zone, then that usually tells us that things were moving so rapidly that we didn't have time to fully integrate and process them at the emotional and mental level. So then at the end of the day, I do the same practice. And the practice is to notice what's happening in my body. Whatever sensation, whatever discomfort, whatever emotion, whatever sadness, I give it permission to be there. And I don't judge it as being bad because I know that when I put my attention on it, by feeling the feeling, it creates a transmutational process that frees up base level, lower frequency energies. I'm using a lot of woo woo words. You give it whatever language you want. For me, putting the attention on the tension spots, on the discomfort in my body, unblocks something that then transmutes back into creative potential. And it can be easy to think that our goal is to get money, to find ways to get money. But really, our goal is to access our full creative potential because creativity is the greatest currency. If the crypto market shut down tomorrow, we'd have to find another way to make money. And so, anything that you know, any knowledge you have about the crypto markets, some of that might be cross domain knowledge, but ultimately, we would have to find some other way to make money, to survive, to live. And when we are tuned into our creative potential, we recognize that we could have everything stripped away from us and still be totally fine. We can be the undercover billionaire that gets dropped off in a random city with $100 bill and an old truck and turns it into whatever we want because the currency isn't the currency. Creativity is the currency. Our ability to perceive our situation and engage with it creatively, courageously, and in a powerful, impactful way is what ultimately determines how life renders around us. So let's take a couple more breaths. And then we can just open our eyes, kind of check the corners of the room and ground ourselves back into whatever space you're in. And we can do this practice whenever we want, whenever we feel like there's too much happening in our mind or we're out of our body too much. When we get in our body is a way more efficient processor of energy, processor of information. And so when we're in indecision, when we don't know what to do, when we feel frantic, when we have feelings of FOMO FUD, the most optimized thing that I've found in my own life is get into the body. What sensation is happening there? And if I can sit with that discomfort long enough, the clarity comes online. So I'm John Ray. Thanks for being with me, and we'll see you in the next one.